Welcome to revAMPd, the #1 amputee podcast hosted by an amputee and brought to you by Dilatory Orthotics and Prosthetics in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm Brian Mosier, the social media advisor for Dilatory, and I also happen to be a left below knee amputee. Let's get into today's episode. Dilatory Orthotics and Prosthetics invites all women to our second annual Women's Amputee event on Saturday, October 21st from noon until 4 p.m. at Chatham University East Side, located at 6585 Penn Avenue in Pittsburgh. This free event will explore mobility milestones and feature Chatham physical therapists teaming up with dilatory prosthetists to work in a fun environment with each amputee on learning to achieve mobility milestones. All attendees will receive a free t-shirt in their choice of size and color. To RSVP, call 412-599-1105, and please remember to include your shirt size and color choice when you call. Speaking of t-shirts, the official revAMPd podcast t-shirt is now available on our website, www.revampedpodcast.com. These 100% cotton t-shirts are available in size small through 3X and come in blue, purple, red, green, and black. Each shirt is $15, and from now through the end of September, 50% of the proceeds from each shirt ordered will go to support Camp No Limits, who provide camps for children with limb loss, as well as education, mentorship, and support to these children and their families. For more information about Camp No Limits, visit www.nolimitsfoundation.org. We also offer a pink breast cancer awareness revamped t-shirt with 50% of all proceeds going to support A Glimmer of Hope, a Pittsburgh-based breast cancer foundation offering services and support to breast cancer patients and their loved ones. For more information about A Glimmer of Hope, visit www.symbolofthecure.com. And now, here's today's episode. How's it going, everyone? My guest today is fellow amputee Caitlin Connor.
Hello. Hey, guys.
So before we get too far into your story, obviously you're an amputee. People know you're an amputee. I want to know about your leg named Rex. What is that about?
Rex has his name because when I amputated, I got 50 stitches.
Oh, wow.
And starts up one side, goes under, and comes up the other. And just the way my scars work, I have 2 scars from the external fixator right up the shin, and then some awesome road rash right on the kneecap. So it looks like an eye, 2 nostrils, and a really awesome mouth. So just the length of my leg, if you take 2 fingers underneath and you move your leg, it looks like a T-Rex.
That's pretty cool. I saw that on Instagram when way back when I first started following you. I thought, man, that's pretty cool. So I said, I'm going to lead with that today. All right. So for those that don't know your story is different from most stories, very different from anything I've ever heard. Take us through. You were on a motorcycle, right? And you got hit?
Yes.
So what happened? Was distracted driver, drunk driver? What happened with that?
She was texting, so she was distracted.
Okay.
So let me give you. There's really not a good way to condense the story. It's just there's so many details to the story, but so bear with me.
Sure.
But it kind of started back in October of 2013. My brother passed away, and he was 26. So this year, I've actually outlived my brother. I'm 27 now, and we kind of started the interesting adversities, if you will.
Sure.
So. Christmas came up and my mom was really depressed because, she lost her son. And my husband and I were engaged at the time. And so she said, hey, you guys just need to get married out here and start giving me grandbabies. and, you know, let's get this thing moving kind of thing. And we both looked at each other and we're like, you know, we could get married out here. We don't care.
Right.
And I always wanted to be a mom. That was like my number one dream job, was just to be a mom. And so I was okay with that part too. Like, I was ready to have kids. And so we ended up moving our wedding up from a year and 3 months out to 3 months out, which I do not suggest anybody. Almost killed some people. And so we got married in April, and we went on a honeymoon road trip and took like a week of just driving across country.
Oh, nice.
And it was fantastic because we didn't have a schedule.
Very
so we
nice.
get back, and, you know, we're newlyweds, and, you know, life is peachy. And then it's about a week and a half after we get back, we find out his mom has stage 4 liver and colon cancer.
Oh, wow.
So that was like the next, you know, wrench in our gears, and we had to start dealing with that. And so that's kind of where this day starts. So it was the day before my birthday. We were planning to go Six Flags the next day and go ride roller coasters because it was just, you know, something we enjoyed.
Right.
His mom had just gone through chemo, and she finally wanted to eat, which, if you know anything about cancer, chemo really sucks, and it makes you, you know, lose your appetite. So
okay,
she wanted to go eat at a restaurant that, you know, wasn't her favorite, but we decided we would go anyways. And so they said, hey, come ride with us. But it was a nice day in North Texas. And we said, no, we're going to get on the bike and we'll meet you there. And so, cause the restaurant was only about a mile down the road. It wasn't very far at all.
Okay.
It's just a quick, so we get on the bike, and it was maybe a block from the house where the accident happened.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we were, and it's usually how it happens, but we were in Springtown, Texas. And if anyone knows Springtown, they have this ridiculously large turn lane that you could probably fit 2 cars in easily. And so this girl was in her car, and she was like angled across the entire lane. And she looked like she wanted to go into the left lane, which was the lane that we were in. So she starts coming out, and I don't know how he does it, but my husband pulls the bike all the way over to the right side so far that he's dragging me and still gets the bike upright.
Wow.
And we both won. But she kept coming across both lanes. She was crossing both lanes of highway and going to a McDonald's, of all things. And so she hit us. The initial impact of the car was my left ankle. That was the first thing she hit, and it went into the bike, into all the gears, and immediately I lost 75% of my ankle.
Wow.
And he went one way with the bike. I flew off the back. We both went rolling. He was about, 50 feet away from me in a ditch, and I was in the road. And so my immediate thought was, I don't want to get hit, again, by traffic, because I'm on a major highway. So I just start yelling because I want people to hear me. I want people to see me on the road and not hit me. So that was my first thought. Luckily, there's a bunch of shopping centers right there, and everybody comes pouring out of the shopping centers. We had a cop there. Officer Hamlin came right out, and he just happened to be at the Berkshire Brothers grocery store and right there. And then there was a girl there who was the very first girl to come up to me, and she was like my little hero. She was interesting because I could tell she was very scared and nervous because she could see my foot. And the first thing I did was sit up and look at my foot, so I already knew it was gone.
Oh wow! Oh my goodness!
I accepted it right then and there. I've had EMS training, and I understand the extensive injuries we both had. So I knew right then and there that was not something that was going to be worth saving, which I think that acceptance really kind of helped me in my journey to follow. So the next thought I had was slow your breathing, think about preserving oxygen, very technical thought process for me, because I saw I'd injured an artery and I didn't want to lose any more blood, because that means, further up the leg is going to be gone.
Right.
And so my husband broke his pelvis all the way through the right side, fractured femur, broke his sacrum, and received a puncture in his gut from the clutch of the bike turning into him.
Oh, wow.
Luckily, it missed all of his organs, luckily. But Then we had some really awesome road rash. My face on the left side was like drugged down. It looked like I got in a giant fight with somebody. The road kind of won that battle, but so he was hearing me yell and freaked out. We have two different kind of mindsets. I'm very calm in these situations. He's quite the opposite. So his first thought was me. Like, he wanted to come check me, but he didn't know his pelvis was broken. So he tried to stand up and collapsed, and he ended up crawling to me the whole way and to come check on me. And then pretty much by then we had all kinds of people next to us and people, you know, separating us, trying to keep him calm and everything. But that girl that I mentioned that came up to me, she's one of my favorite parts of the story because, and I have to tell this because it's one of my favorite parts of the story. We both knew I needed a tourniquet for my leg so I could stop losing blood.
Right.
And I was in EMS in high school, and so I had that kind of training. Well, my teacher in high school made us all make first aid kits. And, you know, everybody kind of could go out and buy pre-made kits and make it their own. And I couldn't afford to buy a pre-made kit. So pretty much everything was like pack Band-Aids and everything else was homemade. So I had a reason for everything in this box. It was a fish and tackle box that I found in the barn that I could use as a seat or elevate people's feet. I had a reason for everything. I had like a thing of bubbles in there that, like, my reason was it's to distract children if they're hurt, or it's to clean a wound if I need to.
Okay.
Or a squishy ball, it was to distract children, or it was to, you know, get somebody's blood pumping, or, you know, like a stress ball to distract somebody. So like everything had a reason. So back to the accident. She knew I needed a tourniquet and she didn't have one. She whips off her bra, and I'm watching her do this. She whips off her bra and she's going to create a tourniquet with it. And the first thing I think is, man, I got to put that in my first aid kit. That's so smart. But yeah, she went to put it on and she moved my leg and I kind of yelled, and she wasn't comfortable with that. But luckily I had, you know, some hidden angel of a nurse in traffic right there that happened to have a tourniquet. I have no idea who she is. So she's listening. Thank you.
Oh, wow.
But, happened to have a tourniquet. And so pretty much like right then the fire truck gets there and ambulance arrives, and it happened really fast. I actually had a stalker from this accident too. There was a guy in traffic that came, and if you know anything about accidents, the first thing you don't do to a motorcycle victim is move their head.
Right.
You don't want to change their spine. And I actually was very conscious about my spine. I already sat up, so my spine was fine. But I was already holding my C-spine perfectly. And so this guy comes up and wants to help, and he actually grabs my head and like pulls it up, which, if you don't know anything about accidents, that is like the fastest way to kill somebody if they have a spinal injury. So he ended up coming to the hospital later and trying to tell all his friends and family that he had saved my life. He ripped off his shirt to create a tourniquet, all this crazy stuff.
Oh my goodness.
Understanding. I was completely conscious the whole time. Like, I remember every detail. So he even created a Facebook page and would say things like, "Oh, I'm super depressed today. I don't have enough gas to get to the hospital to see her," and stuff like that. And it was really creepy and crazy. I ended up asking my uncle to do a background check on him and found out he was wanted. And so I sent my cop buddy that I just made on the accident over there and said, "Hey, this guy is like stalking my house. He knows where my in-laws live, which they live 2 doors away from me." So I was like, "You need to watch this truck." And so he never showed his face again, but it was pretty creepy. After that, we blacklisted myself in the hospital and didn't allow strangers, but it kind of put me into the state of trauma and PTSD, which I can talk about later. But suddenly everybody knew where I lived, which was an issue for me. I have a happy space. I have a bubble. Stay out of it. But
exactly.
And
it's interesting that you mentioned the bubble, because when we were at the conference, someone brought that up, and they're like, "Hey," someone said, "Hey, they're getting too close into my bubble," and everyone's like, "We need to make our bubbles 3 feet bigger than they already are." So,
Yeah, I think basically a bubble is how far you can reach your arms out, and then you take off your prosthetic and you push it out that much further, and that's your distance.
Exactly. So you're in this. Let me ask you: you're in this horrific accident, and you're at the hospital. You wake up, and I was reading this article, and it said, you wake up to discover not only that you had lost your leg, but that also you're pregnant.
Yeah. So
what's that like? What's going on in your head there?
So I wake up on my birthday, and all my family's standing there, and they're all from South Central Texas. So I'm trying to understand how they got there so fast, like trying to comprehend the time, not understanding I'd been in surgery for that long. It's reconstructive surgery. And, I look down, my foot's in it. My leg looks like it's in this giant cast with an external fixator. It's hooked up to a wound vac machine. And, so the nurse walks in right after, and I wake up and she goes, "Oh, good, you're awake. We want to tell you you're 4 weeks pregnant," with all of my family standing there. So I wasn't even mad that I was pregnant. I was mad that they said it in front of my mom, and I couldn't surprise my mom.
Oh, wow.
Because we've been trying to have a baby. We just didn't expect things to go like that. We wanted to have a baby. I always wanted to be a mom. Of course, then you have things like his mom getting sick with cancer, my mom losing my brother, and other reasons to kind of encourage it along the way, move it faster. So we wanted the baby the entire time. So the hard part was my husband was in a different hospital. We were sent to 2 different hospitals.
Oh, wow.
So he didn't even know I was alive until I woke up out of surgery, and they got to call him and say, "Hey, she's good," because I didn't have my ID or anything on me on the bike. So I literally did not have a name in the hospital for a week. My name was Doe Italy. Oh. I was a Dean Doe.
Oh my goodness.
I just didn't have a name. No matter how many times I tell them my name, it doesn't matter because they don't have proof. So, eventually they gave me my name back when I got my wallet, but, it was an interesting thing to not have a name for a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Wow.
And I told it, I was completely conscious on the ambulance. I gave them all of my, my emergency medical information, told them where my parents lived, everything, which is why everybody got there so fast. But,
okay.
I was even cracking jokes on the ambulance with the EMTs just because I know it's not their fault. They're having to deal with it. But,
right.
So he's in a different hospital. We both were in Fort Worth. I got life flighted, which was both cool and sucked because I always wanted to ride a helicopter, but don't do it with a broken leg because it just shakes everything around. It really sucks. But, interesting.
It is. I saw in one of the articles, okay, here it is. I found it. That there's a picture of you and him together in the hospital. We were both in wheelchairs.
That was the first time we got to see each other.
Wow.
So I was in my hospital for 2 weeks, and he was in his hospital for a week, but he went to a rehab facility for another 2 weeks.
Okay.
So that was the first day I got out of the hospital.
Okay.
So I was in a whole different place. So I was glad to be pregnant. That wasn't the issue. And I think the pregnancy kind of pushed me towards moving past the accident quicker. Right. Suddenly I have somebody else to think about. I don't have time to dwell on my own feelings. And granted, I didn't really shove them under the blanket. It wasn't like I was ignoring how I felt, but I also know that sometimes the baby can feel how you feel.
Oh, yeah.
It can affect the baby's health. So my immediate thought process was my mental health is going to determine the baby's health. So immediately try to move forward and make progress. And it was a blessing in disguise, kind of, so to speak, in a lot of different ways. Because, my husband still kind of has some anger towards the accident and kind of, resents the girl who put it, because it changed our lives immediately. And, I don't have any anger towards her. She was actually 9 months pregnant herself in the accident.
Oh, wow.
And the baby survived and everything, but she comes from a family that is a drug family, and baby daddy was, pretty much a loser in jail all the time. So there was no point in me holding a grudge against her because she had their own struggles, and they're far worse than mine. So
yeah,
it wasn't worth my energy and thoughts to think about that and to even hold something like that against her, when I guarantee you that girl didn't mean to text and drive and, almost kill two people. That's not something you wake up thinking you should do.
Right.
No matter the situation. So I have nothing against her. I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't gone through this accident.
And, and that's an amazing perspective, because a lot of people choose to spend their energy on those negative feelings and those negative thoughts and being angry at the situation or the person. And they don't reach their potential because of that. And
yeah.
I think that you have more than reached a lot of potential. You've outpaced a lot of people, and it's amazing. And so get to this. I don't want to lose my question here. So from the time you're in the hospital, what's your recovery time like? How long did it take you before you were able to get a prosthesis?
Oh man, substantially longer than, so, some amputees can be up and walking in 6 months and, go about that way.
Right.
Add pregnancy, it changed everything. So, and speaking of my daughter, she's hollering at me right now. You might hear her. So basically, yeah. So the accident was May 30th, and by August I started my prosthetic process. Okay. So I was only 4 weeks pregnant, so I had to go through everything pregnant. And to this day, I'm the only person I found who's had to amputate while pregnant at the same time. I've done plenty who have, had kids before and after pregnancy, but none who have had to undergo the knife while pregnant. So the reason I say that is because I had to go through my surgeries with minimal pain medication, right? Minimal antibiotics and minimal anesthesia, because I was pregnant. So, I would be in the hospital and I'd have a nurse walk in and she would say, and this particular nurse was my worst nurse, but she would say, "Oh, what's your pain level today?" I'd say, "It's a 10, nicely, politely. It's not her fault." And she would say, "Oh, well, look at you. It should be a 10. Like, I was like, all right, I don't need that woman anymore. Right. So, yeah.
That's insane. And we were actually talking about that a little bit this morning, the difference in going through a recovery period, after amputation with minimal medication to get you through that. Yeah. And that's, I'm sure that had to be very difficult for you at times.
Yeah. I just, for a while, I didn't think the pain was going to go away. And I didn't really think about it too much, just because I had plenty to think about. But, as soon as I amputated, all that pain went away. So, like, I have friends now that are, they're in the process where they're deciding if amputation is going to be for them or not. Okay. And they're going through surgery after surgery, which kills me because I've gone through it, and you're just giving your body that muscle memory of the pain. And so when you end up where you do have to amputate, you're going to have like 10 times worse phantom pain because your body has that muscle memory and it's going to keep sending those nerves and signals. But that's just my theory, at least. And I think you're absolutely right. I don't really.
I said, I think you're absolutely right. They're creating that muscle memory, and it's just going to lead to more phantom pain for them down the road.
Yeah. And phantom pain in general, I can tell you, is a mind over matter thing. Right. And some people get frustrated when I say that, but it's true. Mirror therapy doesn't work for me because I'm very realistic in the fact that I don't want to trick my brain. I know there's nothing there. So it's kind of like, it's annoying to me that I'm trying to lie to myself, basically. So for me, what worked for me is I would sit there and I would wave my hand where my foot used to be, so my brain could see that there is physically nothing there, and it would stop sending those, those nerve signals. And immediately it would, if it wouldn't stop, it would at least lessen. Right. And then, other than that, I just try to relax. I do things like Epsom salt baths. I try to distract myself from it. And if I talk about it, like right now I'm talking about it, it feels like my foot's tingling. because I'm thinking about it. As soon as I stop talking about it and don't think about it, it goes away. It's not a problem.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And it's great as an amputee myself. It's great to talk to someone who says, "Hey, it's mind over matter," because that's exactly what I did. I didn't do the Epsom salts bath because I'm a guy and that's just not my thing. But as far as distracting myself and everything, absolutely, and it went away. But as soon as right now, I'm same as you. I'm thinking about it, and so my toes are starting to tingle.
Yeah, exactly.
And so as soon as I forget, it'll go away.
Yeah, I do have days where I'll be driving and it feels like somebody's shocking me. My legs just start just jolting and it hurts. Yep. But that's where I go back to trying to calm myself, relax myself, and then it goes away. It might take a few minutes, but then it goes away. This whole experience has definitely taught me mind over matter. The power of your mindset and how it can, pave your path for you. Whether it's a good path or a bad path is up to you. Right.
And, and kind of a lead in for this is, so what I did, so after I became an amputee and I, beyond recovery and everything, I didn't know any amputees. And so, I'm on social media, so I start looking for amputees. And at some point in my journey, I discovered you. And when you talk about mind over matter, I'm sitting here even now just kind of scrolling through your Instagram, and I wonder, is there anything you can't do?
My Instagram is literally my life in a year, because I didn't start it until last March, I think.
Okay.
So that really is all compressed in a year, and I'm very excited and honored to be able to say I've done more in a year than most people do in a lifetime.
Yeah, you really have.
I'm very happy with that.
One of the things that caught my attention straight away, and I didn't first see this on Instagram, but I saw this in one of the articles, was you went skydiving.
I love skydiving. I went skydiving before that too. I went 2 times before the accident. And then, so I missed my first anniversary because I was pregnant, so I couldn't do any leg parties or, be a pirate for a day. Some people do. And that stuff is fun to me. Some people think that's dumb, but I have fun with my disability, basically. I don't let it bring me down, and I want to show others that they can do the same, find your way. But, I was pregnant and trying to learn how to walk and, missed all of that the first time. So my second anniversary, I wanted to go skydiving, and that was really fun for me. I did wear my leg, for people that are thinking that right now. They actually had a little strap that they strapped to 2 parts of your leg to make sure it stays on. But I have suction, so that's no problem with me because it goes all the way up my leg.
Right.
But it was the exact same. Just about everything about it was the exact same, except it was even cooler. I love to skydive. That's my favorite reset. It's expensive, but you get some antsiness getting on the plane before you jump, and then you jump, and it's everything just stays on the plane and flies away, and you're free for that moment. So I really enjoyed doing that. That was Skydive Spaceland is a great place if anyone goes to it. So
I will absolutely take your word for that and trust you on that. I love to fly, but I have no intention of jumping out of a plane. But for those that like that, hey, that's awesome. I'll watch from the ground.
I think of it like this. I'm on airplanes all the time now. So people who say they don't want to get out of a perfectly good plane, well, if my airplane goes out, I know how to get out of one and land. So.
Yeah, you'll survive quicker than I will. That's for sure. One of the things out of College Station, Texas, the TV station there, their article is actually entitled "Amputee Mom Reaches New Heights," and so the picture is of you skydiving that they have there. And I thought, man, I've got to ask about it. But that doesn't surprise me that you were doing that beforehand.
Yeah, well,
good.
Have a love for it. Yeah. I have a love for many. I am kind of that adrenaline junkie.
Absolutely.
A little bit.
You can tell that.
And the more you'll see pictures, the more you'll see that.
Yeah. One of the things I read about you is that you're the first amputee boxer.
I am the first female amputee boxer.
Female amputee boxer.
So the reason I correct you is there are a bunch of guys, and some of them are my friends, like Roy Martin and Erica Novaria out of Italy. She's a female. She's the first.
Okay.
And then, so Roy Martin got me started in it. Eric Morante is out of Houston, so he's another one that kind of got me into the boxing thing too. I did do some like kickboxing classes before the accident, and I fell in love with kickboxing and boxing. It's not the same as actually boxing. I'll say that. It was like title boxing and did their cardio classes.
Right.
But, so I still had to learn how to box, everything about it. So I go to Longoria Boxing Club out of Bryan, Texas. And I walked in there and I had no idea if basically all of these relationships I've created, I have no idea if they're going to like take the bait, basically, like they're going to want to work with me. So I walk up to Coach Manny and I'm like, hey, I want to box. Like, are you going to be able to handle adapting to me? Because I'm a little different, basically. And so he's like the coolest guy, doesn't turn anybody down. He's such a sweetheart. They work with a bunch of kids, and it kind of keeps the kids off the street, which is nice.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's good for the kids. But he's like, yeah, I'll work with you. Come on. And so he didn't treat me. Nobody there treats me any differently.
Nice.
I kind of like pushed him a little. If I see a kid slacking, I'm like, hey, if I'm over here jumping rope, you better be jumping 10 times harder than me. So, I'll go up and I'll edge people on. But, yeah, so, I mean, and also, these relationships, I just keep finding these amazing people. And I'm very blessed with that. I've had people, turn me away and stuff before, but they end up pushing me to better people. So, like the biking, that started with Aggieland cycling. I wanted to start. Man, people ask me how I got into triathlon all the time.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking about. Yeah,
I'm gonna forever blame Jennifer T. Clark. she was a triathlete, and she goes to the same prosthetic company that I do, and Roy also goes to the same prosthetic company.
Okay.
And we go up in Fort Worth to Baker O&P, and her husband, Scott Clark, is, he's like the prosthetic assistant that works with me all the time.
Okay.
So it's like his fault I got in sports. He said, hey, do you know what CAF is? The Challenge Athletes Foundation. And I went, I looked at it like 2 weeks after I get out of the hospital. The first thing I started doing was looking for how to be active, basically. And that's how I ran the CAF. And, started reading the stories of like Blake Leeper and Rudy Tolson Garcia and, some of these people I've met now, and they're just as cool in person. But I had already started searching for that. And I think a lot of people get so stuck in their depression that they don't even want to start looking. And so I moved forward very quickly. But he said, have you heard of CAF? And I said, yeah. And he goes, did you know there's a grant process where you can get a running blade? And I said, no, but that's pretty awesome, because that was when I just started figuring out that, running prosthesis and, extracurricular sports legs are not covered by insurance.
Right.
So, which is ridiculous, because you would think they would want their patients to be healthy and have a healthy lifestyle, because they live longer and go to the doctor less, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
So, that's just my thought process. But, so Scott kind of got me going towards the running blade. And then I saw basically a picture of his wife plastered on the wall in the prosthetic company, which you can't stand, which cracked me up. But, and she was doing triathlons. And so then I started going, maybe I could do that. Like, why not? I don't know unless I try.
Right. Absolutely.
So I started by running first. This little baby steps, not like real running. Did my first 5K, and it took me 58 minutes, and most of it was walking.
Okay.
I'd forgotten my cotton socks in in the car, so I couldn't add socks when I started losing volume on my leg. So the thing about that is I came back this year and I did the exact same 5K in 31 minutes, and I plan to go back next year and do it faster. But the problem I had with my leg then, that first 5K, I had my daughter, and so I was changing a lot of baby weight. I went through so many legs when I was pregnant because of weight gain. I went from 111 pounds to 172 pounds during my pregnancy.
Okay.
Pretty much lost a lot of that right after too. So I went through like 7 different sockets, and then I was in suction first, and I switched to pin socket, which worked for a little bit because it had the adjustable back where you can adjust it to your volume.
Right.
Which was fantastic for my really pregnant days. But then my test socket broke. I took my first 3 unassisted steps and my socket cracked and I couldn't wear it. And I was in a wheelchair that didn't have brakes, and I got up and the wheelchair rolled out from under me. And I was very pregnant at this point. So the first thing I didn't want to do was fall on my butt and hurt the baby. So I ended up falling on my stump and I broke the tip of my leg again. So it was another 6 to 8 weeks recovery, no prosthetic, wheelchair all over again. So like, wow. I'm going to work and I put my wheelchair in the trunk and I hop to the front and I drive and then I hop to the back and I get my wheelchair out. And that was basically how it was. And I did all of it pregnant. So it looked really interesting to people seeing a one-legged pregnant hopper in the parking lot.
that is kind of, when you imagine it, it's kind of funny.
Yeah. I mean, there were a couple times I fell. Like the first time I fell on the steps, I actually just like started crying because, that was the first like slap in the face, after getting out of the hospital. That I couldn't even go downstairs, and I had my crutches and everything, and it just didn't work. And so, then I like fell in the parking lot at a Target, and just there were times that it would get me down, especially when I was pregnant, because I was trying so hard to take care of the baby. And I say this every time I get a chance. I would do it over and over again. I would get rid of that left foot every time if it meant keeping my child safe.
Right.
And I have no problem with that. So then I had the baby, and luckily my balance came right back. Like I remember getting up to go to the bathroom right after delivering, and I was like, "Oh, I can stand again!" Like, take away a leg, yeah, it changes your balance. Add pregnancy, where your spine actually physically changes and changes your balance. It's a whole new ballgame.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So like I'm having balance issues the whole time. I had to learn to walk like 4 different times.
Wow.
1, losing leg. 2, pregnancy changes. 3, breaking the leg, and then 4, after having the baby is when I really actually got to start learning how to walk. So it took me a good 8 months, 9 months, and that was an active recovery. Like I was trying really hard to get to walking, but it's very interesting path. And then the next thing I did, the most important thing I did, was I set goals. And that's kind of what set me on this journey. The first 2 goals I made were very simple. I wanted to walk before the baby, and I wanted to run before the baby, because I know kids are active and I wanted to chase her around and play with her and stuff. Those were my initial goals. And then I got tired of seeing like my legs atrophy in the wheelchair and stuff, and just I wasn't very muscular before. I was already skinny. Okay. So seeing myself look like anorexic was, it was heartbreaking because I was eating all the time. I was breastfeeding. I was trying to feed another child off like nothing. And so, then it was like self-defense thing. I saw myself withering away. I had a baby. I was either in a wheelchair or on crutches at the time. And I was mostly by myself because my husband had to go back to work. And, luckily he was walking by October. But, so then it was self-defense. It'd be things like I'm going to the grocery store and I have this huge basket of groceries and this baby, and I'm in those stinking electric carts that I can't stand because everybody stares at you already. And so I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to get like mugged. I still have a baseball bat in the backseat of my truck in case somebody comes up when I'm putting groceries away. I'm going to beat their butt. So So those goals are what kind of pushed me towards getting active. I didn't really have any idea like how far I would take them. I didn't have the goals I do now. I'll say that. My goals are very different from when I first started. At first, I just want to be active again. And now my goals are pretty awesome, I think. So I started with the 5K, and then I said, okay, what else can I do? Everything was always, what else can I do? And I don't know unless I try.
Right.
So then I tried to connect to a couple of CrossFit gyms in my local town just because I knew I needed some weight training to gain some muscle back. And the first one turned me down. They're like, no, we're not going to work with you, basically. Not like, they basically wanted to, I didn't want to pick a CrossFit gym that was going to treat me like a normal member. And the reason being because I'm not, there are certain things that if they teach me wrong, I can injure myself. So I wanted them to understand that this was very much a partnership, and that was how I wanted it to start. So the first one turned down the idea, and then the next one sent me an email that I never got. And so I ended up just walking in and happened to catch the owner who was all about the idea. So that's how I started getting into like the CrossFit side of things. Started working with CrossFit Red Hornet. And then like everything just kept going after that. Like then I was in CrossFit and I still have a love for it. Like I have a love for all of these sports. I just, right now I'm on different tracks. I have to train differently each time. And so, when I found CrossFit, that's when I found Team Summit Simply Required, which is just a team of badasses, guys. And, some of them are probably listening right now and I love them to death. Just a bunch of one-arm, one-legged, blind people doing all kinds of crazy things, like throwing up. Like Zach Houston has no legs and can bench press 500 pounds, and then you've got Logan Aldridge with one arm who there and throws up weight with one arm like nothing, and so many more people. And then of course one of the first people I spoke with was Derek Carver and Angela. And a couple other people, and, they kind of took me in, and I was like, I still stick to the statement. I still think I'm probably one of the weakest people on the team, strength wise, weight wise, but they took me in under their wings, and they let me become part of the family. And that kind of led to, the Arnold Classic, doing the CrossFit competition this past March. That was a lot of fun.
Nice.
So CrossFit turned into, I was still doing it at the same time, but then I found Team Catapult they're out of Houston, but they cover, they kind of spread out and take in athletes from all over. But Team Catapult is kind of triathlon related. Okay. It's not like, they're not going to like kick somebody out who doesn't do all three or anything. We have a lot of people that just come and run, or they just want to learn how to bike or just learn how to swim, things like that. So the reason it's triathlon related is, the co-founders were all triathletes, and they started by working out the blind, and then they wanted to expand it to people with mixed abilities or mixed impairments. So I tried to reach out to them a year ago, but the guys were so busy trying to get this thing started. We didn't connect until pretty much SCTC, which is the San Diego Triathlon Challenge.
Okay.
So this goes back to Jen and Roy. I convinced them, but they blamed this on me. I convinced them to do the San Diego Triathlon Challenge with me.
Okay.
Roy and I didn't know how to swim, so that canceled the swim for us. Jen's like, sure, I'll take the swim, knowing that was like the easiest part of this entire challenge. And so Roy and I had no choice. So Roy was like, well, I'm a pretty good runner. I'll take the running. I was like, well, crap. You're going to stick the girl that got hit by a car on a bike. I guess I'll figure it out. Like, I didn't have a bike. I knew nothing about bikes. And this full story is going to show that in so many different ways. I went and found Aggie Land Cycling and spoke to the owner and said, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. I need a bike. I have no idea what I'm doing. Do you want to help? And Rod was like, yeah, I'll help you. This is a super nice guy. Just leaves back to the nice people that I keep finding. And gave me a bike and some shoes to clip in and everything. And so that was like how I got started in that, and went back to the CrossFit gym I was training at, jumped on the bike in my clipped shoes, not knowing I wasn't going to be able to clip out of my left leg. And so rode around on the bike a couple laps around the gym because nobody was in there. I was like, this is cool, yeah. And then a couple of my friends walked in. I was going to get real cocky and like stop the bike right before them, which I did, but I started leaning to that left side. So I started falling and I put that wrist down and ended up fracturing my arm.
Oh, wow.
Like first day on the bike. I was like, oh man, like, and I had already signed up for San Diego Triathlon Challenge, and we were fundraising and everything. So, and I knew I was going to be doing this bike, and it's a 1 mile swim, a 44-mile bike, and a 10-mile run. And the bike and run are like hillacious. There are so many hills. And so I had no idea what I was getting into. It was awesome. So I lost 2 months of training, all training, like bike training, CrossFit, all of it. I had to basically do a lot of nothing for a little bit. I like got where I was doing some one-legged exercises, and that was it. And then I finally, pretty much by the time I had healed up, was basically time to get on the bike for this ride. We get to San Diego, and I get there early. Just the way my plane ticket works, I couldn't change it. And so I had to learn how to put my bike together and take it apart on YouTube. And this is where Team Catapult comes in. Mark Barr gave me a bike box so I could travel, and he's a Paralympian on Team Catapult. And if it weren't for him, I wouldn't have been able to go because I wouldn't have been able to take a bike. So I show up to this hotel and I put my bikes together, and I swear I'm the only person in San Diego walking next to my bike. Everybody else is riding their bike. They're like, nope, not getting on that bike. There's cars. I'm by myself. I'm not getting on the bike.
Right.
So I walk to a bike shop and have them once over my bike and make sure I did it right. And then I'm like, could you put airs in the tire? Because I didn't even know I needed to bring a pump. Like, that's how new I was to biking.
Wow.
So it gets to race day, and we're all lined up, and I'm sitting there on my bike, and luckily they gave me a bike guide to go ride with me, because I'm that person that doesn't check the bike paths or the course paths and like review anything. I just kind of show up and ride, which can be dangerous for long distances. And so they give me this guy, and he's super chipper and really awake, really way too early in the morning. And so I was like on my bike, very serious, because I was terrified to be on this bike that I had no training and had no idea what I was doing. And I'm thinking to myself, there's no way I'm going to be able to ride 2 hours with this guy. And to the people that know what the course is like, 2 hours is ridiculously fast time. It took me 5.5 hours to finish the course.
Oh, wow.
And I fell down twice. And if it wasn't for Chuck, my bike guide, I wouldn't have made the course. Like, I would have had to call somebody. So like the guy that I was regretting riding with was the reason I finished. But it was like the worst hills. My foot went numb, like maybe a third of the way through the entire course. And it was very interesting, but yeah. I learned a lot, and I surprised a lot of people. Like the night before, I'm sitting around a table with a bunch of Paralympians. The 3 girls that got gold, silver, and bronze were sitting at the table, and everybody's going, "Oh, how's your training going?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's good." Totally lying through my teeth. They go, "How many miles have you trained?" And I held up 3 fingers, and they said, "No, really." And I'm like, "No, really. I've only been on the bike for 3 miles. I had to learn how to shift on course because I didn't have any time to ride the bike and nobody to ride it with or to show me."
Wow.
So I learned how to shift on course. And basically when I left that course, I was like, I can do this. Like I finished, I was like, I survived this. I came through the finish and I had the ugliest finishing photos. I had tears all over my face. And they asked me, I said, are you going to do it again? And I was like, yeah, I'll be back next year so I can do it faster. So now I'm like trying to raise money to go back to SCTC so I can see how fast I can do it this time now that I actually know what I'm doing.
Right.
And have had some training. So that's that. Like the bike course, 44 miles. And I turned to Chuck and I'm like, hey, I bet we're halfway through this. And he goes, oh, yeah, it's probably in 15 miles. And I was like, that's okay. I can take a third of the course. I'll be okay. Because the first thing you do is you go up this mountain of a hill. And it's a long grade hill. So it takes a lot on your body right away. And the one thing they warn you about this course is Torrey Pines. Torrey Pines is like the biggest hill on the course and it's killer. And we got to the first stop and it showed us the miles. We'd only gone 10 miles.
Oh, wow.
And if it weren't for Jen giving me her sunglasses, everybody would see me crying on the bike. Like I was like beat down. I was like, how am I going to finish this? But then we kept going and there was a really good downhill. So I felt better about that. And then we got to the 40-mile mark and I felt like I just won a race. I felt like I just finished. I was so happy. And then those tears at the finish line were tears of joy at that point. And so, it was just a huge life lesson in itself. One, about not being prepared, and two, about how perseverance and persistence, can help push you through something, no matter how difficult. I had to stop probably 5 times on Torrey Pines just to rest my legs because my body had never been through anything like that before. I never did sports before this.
Oh, wow.
Before last year, I had never done sports.
Oh, my goodness.
So everything was new, not just like physically to my body,
right?
And not physically because I lost a leg, but knowledge wise, like I don't have the knowledge of sports. I mean, I have more now, but
right.
Getting into this stuff, I had no idea what I was getting into.
And that's crazy. You would never know. Looking at your Instagram, no one would ever, if they didn't know you, they wouldn't know because you make it look easy on here. And I mean, granted, I know we post our best pictures on Instagram or whatever, but no, you make it, you do. And it's incredible how far you've come. One of the pictures that caught my attention, it's not actually a picture of you, but it's a quote that I wanted to read. And I just want to ask you about it. It says, the more I run, the more I love my body, not because it's perfect, far from it, but because with every mile, it's proving to me that I'm capable of more than I ever thought possible.
Yes.
Tell me about what that quote means to you and how that impacts your life and what you've experienced to overcome.
So growing up as a kid, when, everybody has to do sports growing up, they have to go to PE, they have to do, some form of organized sport.
Right.
I basically tried to get out of sports as soon as I could. I went back to band and stayed in the arts and avoided it. And that's because I hated it because I was bad at it. I was really bad at sports. Every time we played some sport of the ball, I would get hit in the head with a ball, hands down every time. Basketball, baseball, volleyball, didn't matter. So I hated the sport because I couldn't have fun. And it was just because I felt like I was awful. There were other kids who were better at sports. They were naturals, and it's funny, you look back and now none of those people do sports, but, it meant a lot to me to start doing sport and seeing that I could do it a lot more after I lost a leg, because then you think back to the times where I didn't do sports because I thought I couldn't do it. I'm like, that's not realistic. I can do it now with one leg better than I could back then. And it's mindset. It's everything about believing in yourself and saying, how do I know unless I try? And a lot of it is practice. Like I had no understanding of practice before this. Everything I did, I quit. I was a quitter. I did piano lessons. I quit every time. When I was a kid, I did gymnastics, and I walked up to my parents and said, I don't want to do gymnastics anymore. And they said, why? And I said, I want my Tuesdays back. I was like 6. What do I do on Tuesdays? Nothing. Like there was no reason for it. It was just an excuse. And so it wasn't until I had to start realizing there's no excuse for my failures except for myself, that I started finding my successes. And it was a lot to do with practice and trying again and falling off the bike 2 times, but still finishing the course to say you finished it, and starting with, I'm going to finish it, and then going to, okay, well, now I finished it. Let's see if I can do it better. And so that's like how everything has kind of pushed me towards wanting to be better at what I'm doing. And like the sports, doing all the different sports, that's just because I have found a love for it. Like there are sports I don't like. Like you're probably not going to see me playing ping pong, but unless it's just for fun, but I won't do it professionally by any means.
Right.
But that's where like events like Gateway to Gold come into play, where you can try all these different sports and see what you're good at. And that's kind of like how I got pushed into a bunch of different sports.
And so you mentioned Gateway for Gold. Tell us about that. What is Gateway for Gold about?
So Gateway to Gold is an event it's Paralympic related. And so what they do, and they have it all over the U.S., the one I'm going to this year is in Humboldt, Texas. It's close to Houston, Texas. It's an event that anybody can come to. Let's see, anybody brand new to their disability, anybody born with a disability, pretty much any age. I think the kids have to be over 6.
Okay.
And it's free. That's the best part. It's free. So these Paralympic coaches come out and they coach you on whatever the sports are for that year. And you get some of the best training for free for that day. And so what it is people can come out and test out the sport, see what they like. For me, last year, I signed up for every single sport because I wanted to find what I was good at. Unfortunately for me, I found out I was actually kind of good at all of the sports I signed up for.
Okay.
So it was kind of like a problem because then I had to choose which sports I really liked. But, you get to learn the sport, or you can, if you've been doing the sport, you can show off in front of the Paralympic coaches. And it's really kind of like your pipeline to the Paralympics. It's the gateway to the gold. So last year, I loved it for networking. I love to network. I love to meet people. I love to hear their stories. And so I met people like John Register, who is, he was a world Paralympian, and Jasmine Ryan, who is a Paralympic shooter. She actually started out in wheelchair basketball, and through Gateway to Gold and through events like Gateway to Gold, found out she actually likes shooting better. Just by chance, her basketball game was canceled and she had enough time to go play around with shooting. And now she's on Team USA for shooting. So it's like, you think you're good at one thing, but events like this, you can go try everything and you may be better at something else.
Right.
Like this year they have cycling, track and field, which covers a bunch of different things, wheelchair basketball and wheelchair tennis. And they switch them. Like last year we had rowing and powerlifting, and they'll switch them each year. But this year they're actually doing something different. They're doing this thing called face-off. And what that is like the athletes that are there can race each other. Like I'll be racing Kira Stevens. She's a 12-year-old with cerebral palsy. And we actually raced at Texas Regionals this past spring. And we were 100th of a second away from beating each other. I beat her by 100th of a second.
Wow.
And so now we're training to race each other, and it's just for fun. And it's like the event can be just for fun for anyone who wants to try it, or really the reason we're pushing each other in face-offs is because we kind of want to, show our best in front of the Paralympic coaches in hopes to become part of the team.
Right.
So, and that is one of my goals, is to be on Team USA now, which is something that was very distant to me before. I never really thought about it until I started doing triathlon and getting to running. And I had to I think November, pretty much when San Diego Triathlon Challenge was in October last year, is when I really started to learn how to swim, bike, and run. I'd never learned how to do any of that before. I ran in gym. That was it. I didn't know anything about run mechanics or anything like that. I didn't know how to ride a bike. I could ride a bike and then I would hit a rock and I'd flip the bike and I'd never touch it again. So, and I didn't know how to swim. I doggy paddled. That was the most of my swimming. So I really had to learn how to do all three sports. And it's getting close to a year now that I've been doing it. But especially swimming, like the biggest love I have for triathlon is because I faced those fears of drowning while swimming or getting hurt while on a bike or just not being able to run. So I really had to face fears in San Diego on that bike ride because it was the first time I'd really gotten back onto two wheels. But this time I was in control of the vehicle, which I didn't trust. And it was open course, which meant there were going to be cars. We actually almost got hit by a bus.
Oh my goodness.
The danger is very real. So now, I can say I've conquered those fears, and, it just helps push me towards the next thing each time.
So you raced this young lady before who's half your age. 100th of a second separates the two of you. So
yes.
Do you communicate with her outside of this? Or are you guys, I don't know.
Oh, yes. No. I mean, it's all good friends,
Sure.
Roy Martin's going to be racing Anthony Quinn, and they were the same kind of foot race. They were also 100th of a second away.
Oh my goodness.
So Kira is in triathlon too. So like before the race at Texas Regionals, we're sitting there talking, and I'm like, hey, so what are your like averages? Like, what are your times? Trying to like scope out how fast she runs.
Right.
And so I found, our paces were actually very similar. So I was like, all right, this is going to be a very good race.
Yeah.
And so I sat there and I was maybe like 3 feet behind her the entire time. We had to do a 1,500 meter run was our race. We did like one more, but that was the big one. And so I was behind her this whole time, and I would try to speed up and pass her. They'd be like, no. Like I could feel my heart was beating harder. I was like, no, I got to listen to my body. So it was really until that very last 100 meters that last 100 meters was where I started sprinting.
Wow.
And so then she sees me sprinting, and she takes off. So then the two of us we just start gunning it. We're taking off running.
Wow.
And it was like a beautiful race. Like I enjoyed that race so much better than say I'd been racing somebody who was maybe less at my pace or more at my pace, and we're nowhere near each other. Then, it's no fun.
Right.
But, I still talk to Kira. Kira is like a junior national champion. She holds a bunch of field records.
Oh, nice.
For shot put, and she's very good at what she does. And I can't wait to see how she grows up. She's going to be very good in the sport. And so it's fun for us to race each other. But events like this make it fun, but it's also, it's rewarding in a lot of different ways.
Right.
It's rewarding with networking. You meet people. It's rewarding with the coaching, the valued coaching you get. And, if you have the stuff, then like last year we had Caitlin Bounds. She's partially blind, has cerebral palsy, and I think slightly autistic maybe. Could be wrong on that. But she is on Team USA this year, and the Gateway to Gold really pushed her towards that.
Wow.
And she just came back from London for, the World Championship. So stuff like that is why we do this.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you about was I noticed in some of your pictures that you have quite the workout partner in Tinley.
Yeah.
He seems to like to work out with
She goes everywhere with me. Yeah, she goes everywhere with me. I actually just got back from LA yesterday, and she got to go on the trip with me.
Yeah, I saw one of your pictures. I saw that she was on the
photo
plane
shoot
with you. And I flipped my phone around and I showed my wife. I said, "Look at this awesome picture." I just thought that was so cool, that she got to go with you.
I try to take her everywhere I can. I mean, there's some trips it's like too much on her. She saw my first triathlon, but I try not to like make her go to too many triathlons right now. She's only 2.5.
Right.
So, in triathlons, you have to get up really, really god awful early. I mean, we're talking 3:30, 4 a.m. every time, no matter what, depending on the race.
Oh, wow.
So, that's too early for a baby because she's a night owl like me. So trying to get her to go down before like 10 o'clock is next to impossible until she gets into school at least. And then, so like we just came back from LA for a photo shoot with Target actually. Nice. She got to go with me to that. And luckily I had some friends who could watch her so she wouldn't be screaming around the set. But so I try to take her with me.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So, one of the things that, you're obviously have a very positive outlook, very positive experiences so far, and you've really done a lot of things. And, we see a lot of amputees out there that they're depressed, they're sad, they're negative.
Oh yeah.
And I don't, not that they want to be, but, they're really struggling.
Oh no. And I've been there too.
Yeah.
I've been there too.
What advice or encouragement would you give them to maybe help them take their life back a little?
It took me 2 years to realize I had PTSD from the accident.
Oh, wow.
And so, it just, because I was pregnant and I did push some of that aside and I tried to, it was all about the baby. And I don't take that back for a second, but I didn't realize at the same time how that was changing me by not trying to feel those emotions. I tend to, if I go through a lot of trauma, I don't hide my emotions, but I don't address them really. So, and I know a lot of people go through that. I've been pointed at, I've been stared at, it's always kids, they come up and they say, "What's wrong with you?" And my mindset at the beginning was very different from it is now. At the beginning, it bothered me so much that a kid would come up and say, "What's wrong with you?" And I wouldn't really know what to say. I didn't want to be rude. I didn't want to be hurtful. I didn't want to say anything that was going to, alter that kid in a negative way. So, usually I just respond very passively. I still to this day don't want to respond negatively. Right. So, but now if a kid comes up with me, or there's a picture on my Instagram where I'm lifting a bar with weights from my wheelchair with one leg. I don't have my leg on that day. I was having leg problems. And so there was a kid at the gym that looked at me and said, "Oh, you're going to fall. You're so going to get hurt." And he doesn't know any better. And he was rude, but I don't care. And I looked at him. I said, "No, not today. This is my day. I'm going to do what I need to do." And I did. And it was the difference between that kid, hearing me say that and seeing me do it compared to like the kid at the donut store that sat there and said, "Ooh, what's wrong with her?" And the mom sitting there and listening to the kid and then just turning away and pretending it never happened.
Right.
That was very frustrating in the beginning. It was always the parents that frustrated me the most because they wouldn't address their kid, or they would say, "Oh, no, don't ask those questions." No. And that's today. Now, if a parent says that, I said, no, let them ask. I want them to ask. Now if a kid looks at me, points, even if it's like a look of disgust or something, I say, "Come here. You want to touch it?" And I'll like tap it so they can see that it's, it's not going to hurt me or it's not going to do anything to them.
Right.
And, they come up and that opens up discussion, and then they ask all these wonderful questions that they have no idea what the answer is to it. And that exposes them in a positive way so that in the future, they don't see it as odd.
Right.
They don't see it as something that's a taboo. And so, my mindset has changed significantly. And I credit some of that to sports, because, the stronger I get, the healthier I get, the better I feel. Whether it's adrenaline or endorphins or just seeing my body change. I've never had this much muscle on my body in my life because I never did sports before. And now people walk up to me and they go, "You look athletic." And I'm like, "Yeah, if only you knew what I really do." But, that was something that nobody's ever really said to me before. And I enjoy getting positive feedback, and it's really about how you view yourself. If you view yourself fat or ugly or whatever, you're kind of going to project that on somebody else. And somebody else may say, "Okay, well, if you think you're fat, well, I'm going to think you're fat too." Well, if you sit there and you project you're a beautiful person, or you're strong-willed, or, whatever positive things you can think about yourself, you will project these positive images on the rest of society. And, at the same time, you can uplift people doing that. And when you uplift others, it's amazing to see how you can change somebody's life in a positive way, even if it's just for a moment.
Right. Absolutely. So I have been talking to Caitlin Connor today, and I would encourage you to give her a follow over on Instagram. And let me give you this name, and this, of course, will be in our show notes. It is Caitlin and her leg named .rex over on Instagram. Be sure to go and give her a follow. Caitlin, thank you so much for joining me on Amp Life. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. I also have a Facebook page too, by the way. It's the same thing, though. You see the same stuff.
All right. Very cool. We will link all of that in our show notes so that everybody can find you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Thank you. You've been listening to Revamped, the #1 amputee podcast hosted by an amputee and brought to you by Delatory Orthotics and Prosthetics in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you've enjoyed today's episode, leave us a review on iTunes or give us a like on Facebook. I'm Brian Mosier. I invite you to visit our website, www.revampedpodcast.com, and connect with us on Facebook at Revamped Podcast.